Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of EKU Online's eCast series. Our mission at EKU Online is to change lives by providing access to affordable and high-quality degree programs in meaningful disciplines that positively impact our society. This is why we have recently added a certificate in global supply chain management to our portfolio of program offerings. This 4-course certificate is a perfect addition for students earning a bachelor's degree in marketing, management, general business, you name it. It affords students a specialization area that nicely complements their degrees. To learn a little bit more about this certificate and global supply chain management as a field, we are joined by Dr. James Kirby Easterling. He is a professor in EKU's College of Business and Technology and has led the establishment of the Global Supply Chain Program at EKU. Dr. Easterling worked for over 20 years in progressive supply chain leadership roles with multinational companies, even leading to long-term international assignments in both Japan and Singapore, working for Corning Incorporated. He is a proud 3-time EKU graduate, earning a BBA in both accounting and economics from EKU, also an MBA from EKU with an emphasis in economics and finance, a master's degree in supply chain management from Penn State, and his doctorate of business administration and information systems and operations management from the University of Florida. Thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Easterling.
Thank you for having me. It's my honor.
Thank you so much. So, global supply chain management is a term I'm sure most of us have heard at one point or another, but many people aren't very familiar with the field itself. So I want to start with a question that will really lay the foundation for this conversation of, what is global supply chain management?
That's a great question. And one of the interesting things about supply chain management area is the work isn't new, but the name of the field, supply chain management, is relatively new. So I think back to when I started working in supply chain in 1993, that was just prior to the term supply chain management being commonly used. So at that point in time, we thought about production planning, we thought about purchasing, we thought about logistics and all of those types of things. We thought of each of those sort of in a singular context about integration between each of those pillars. So what supply chain management is, those work areas are not new, but supply chain now infers that the whole, what we call the SCORE model, plan, source, make, and deliver, that we're integrating all of those things together. And we're not just doing that within our own company, we're doing it with partner companies as well.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned that because I think so often our knowledge of global supply chain management is maybe just sourcing or just transportation. And it is those things, but it's not only those things. So you touched a little bit on the SCORE model, and that is kind of the framework for our curriculum at EKU. So can you maybe go into a little bit more depth about what that framework or what that model is and kind of how that framework distinguishes EKU and our graduates?
That's a wonderful question. So one of the things that I wanted to do when I started this program back in 2014, I wanted us to have something really unique. And by that, I wanted us to have a comprehensive supply chain program. One of the interesting things, if you look at so-called supply chain management programs across the United States and even international programs, a lot of so-called supply chain management programs are really logistics only programs. And here at EKU, logistics is just one part of the supply chain model. So, as I like to say, there's no one particular area that is supply chain in of itself. Supply chain is made up of many different areas, including what we commonly talk about here at EKU, the SCORE model, which is a comprehensive model that over 30 companies 25 plus years ago came together and said, look, we need to raise and highlight the significance of what is now called supply chain by integrating all of these different concepts together. So that's what we've done at EKU. And I think that's one of the reasons that our students are so successful, is that when our students graduate, or whether they go into an internship or whatever it might be, they have the full body of knowledge of supply chain in whatever particular area a particular employer wants them to go in. They know the basics of that field.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what you're getting at mainly is our program is a lot more comprehensive than a lot of other programs out there. So our students absolutely know what they're talking about, no matter what area of supply chain they end up falling in.
Very true. So, I receive feedback from so many different companies. I think that's one of the things that makes our program unique is I'm constantly working to develop new alliances, as I call them, with companies in our region. What we really want is be the premier university in this region that employers come to for entry-level supply chain talent. Whether they're looking for a buyer or a production planner or someone to work in logistics or import, export, whatever it might be, we have the kind of program here that a student can take, they can immerse themselves into, and then they're going to be positioned very well for whatever wonderful opportunities comes their way.
Yeah, absolutely. And you were kind of touching on this, but other than the score model, which obviously makes our program extremely competitive, what else do you think really sets our program apart from maybe some other competitors?
I think there are 3 or 4 things at least that are worth mentioning. One, this was, I guess, in the second or third year that I was at EKU. I decided that we needed an advisory board. So it's one thing, to have myself with 20 plus years of experience, sort of building the program and guiding it and so forth. But our program was growing so fast, and it still is growing very fast, that I felt we needed an advisory board of other senior executives to help guide, the future. So we have 18 or 20 senior level executives from the top companies in our region, Valvoline, Lexmark, Hitachi, Carhartt. Those are just some of the companies that their top supply chain executives help guide our program into. For example, after 6 years, we just recently made some modifications to our curriculum. All right, so we never want to settle here at EKU. We had a great program, but as with anything else, after the first 6 years, it was time to sort of refresh that and add some new courses. So that advisory council was very, very beneficial. One of the other interesting things is I think we have had the most internships in the last 6 years of any program in the business school. We've had well over 100 internships since our program launched in 2014. And it's with those same elite companies, Lockheed Martin, the largest defense contractor in the world. We are now a premier university that they are recruiting from. So I think the number of internships, the access to executives, not only to those executives that are part of our advisory board, not only do they help guide curriculum changes and things of that nature, but they are also advocates of our program. Whenever I'm asking a new executive to be on our advisory board, the typical question I get is, what do you need from me? And the thing I always say is, I need you to be an advocate for our program. And they are. And they come and speak. They guest lecture. They open doors for our students. And the other interesting thing that we've just in the last 3 or 4 years have added is the Association for Supply Chain Management, which was formerly known as APICS. This is the premier organization for supply chain professionals We are now an ASCM APICS program, a program of supply chain management. So we now have an official affiliation that very premier elite professional organization. And several times per semester, we'll have the APICS ASCM chapter meeting here on the EKU campus, where we'll bring 40 or 50 senior level supply chain professionals from the region to EKU. And then conversely, a couple times per year, we will go to Lexington and join their meeting. There's lots of things that I think make our program really unique. But I think the internships, the quality of internships, these are 99% plus paid internships. And what I'm particularly proud of is over 90% of our students that intern receive a job offer upon graduating. So I think that's the ultimate compliment. When, if you think about an internship, it's an opportunity to highlight your skills, highlight your character and work ethic. And, we often say it gives an opportunity for the company to sort of test drive the student. A great indicator of how someone's going to perform once they graduate is their performance while they're still in school. Do they get work on time? Do they work well with others? Do they have the necessary framework to be able to add value early on? And overwhelmingly, the answer is yes to all of the questions.
Yeah, I've always heard an internship is just a long job interview. So the fact that it's
That's exactly right.
The fact that it's a 90% plus, you said, of those interns becoming full-time employees, it's a complete testament to the program and to the comprehensive curriculum and the preparedness that you guys, are really intentional about with the students. So they're ready to enter that field.
Yeah, I totally agree. And something else I should mention, if you think about, our program now starting the 7th year, something really interesting is happening that I can't say that I quite foresaw. And that is this. Those students that, graduated in those first 2 or 3 years of our program, they are now, into their 3rd or 4th year in the workforce. And many of them are now, rising up to an entry-level supervisor or management role of some form or fashion. And those former supply chain students, those supply chain graduates of our program, they are now coming back to me and recruiting from their university. And I think that's just the coolest, testimony ever, that, not only do they see the value of how what they learned at EKU propelled their career, they believe enough in our program that now that they're rising up into management, they want to recruit students from their program as well.
Yeah, that's a huge testament to the program. I mean, those students know the ins and outs, and they're saying that this is such a great education that I want all of my employees to have gone here. So that's a huge testament to the curriculum and the program that you guys have established. Just listening to you, I mean, I'm ready to enter global supply chain management. I had the privilege of taking one of your courses in my last semester of school, and I remember wishing I had taken it earlier because of so many dynamic career options that there are in global supply chain management. So could you maybe touch on that a little bit of, what career opportunities are there and why should people enter this field?
Absolutely. And I remember you very well as an excellent student. One of the things that we have done here at EKU is we want to make it easy to do business with us. And what we mean by that is that we have expanded our program. Our program was, like most other academic programs, typically only, in-person courses taught during, the typical day hours that traditional students take. We now try to offer at least one of our supply chain classes every semester as a night class. And we have lots of students that are taking our supply chain courses as night class students. And these are students that maybe got a degree in a different area, or it could be students that are applying, for example, a general management degree into supply chain, and they realize they need more knowledge specific to supply chain, and they're coming back even as a postgraduate and taking a course with us. We just recently added through our eCampus a supply chain certificate program, which is comprised of 4 foundational score elements that I've spoken on extensively: plan, source, make, deliver. And that program is taken by students who are maybe in a different field completely than supply chain, maybe HR, maybe accounting, whatever it might be. But we also have a lot of students that are taking that certificate program that they are working a full-time day job, right? And they want to make supply chain a career. And they're coming back now and getting the supply chain certificate courses as a way to, further accelerate their career. And even something we're doing very interesting, this starts in 2021, is we're working with EKU's Workforce Education Department, and we're going to be offering some supply chain classes through the Workforce Development Program as well. So what started out as a traditional program for traditional students has really evolved to where now we offer night classes. We have a certificate program for those that are majoring or have majored in something else, as well as, creative offerings through workforce education for people that are working, 40 plus hours a week.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think people want to get into this field because there are just so many opportunities. Like you said, it's such a wide range and such a large scope of different professions that people can get into. Do you find that a lot of people are, they're in supply chain from the get-go, or do you find that a lot of them do kind of pivot because their job kind of leans more towards supply chain and then they need those extra credentials?
The entry-level roles that our students most typically go into is a buyer, right? Someone that buys either raw materials or services for their organization. So if we think about Toyota up in Georgetown that manufactures, automobiles, those parts for the various automobiles come from Toyota suppliers all over the world. So every organization has to have a buying organization. Sometimes it's called purchasing, sometimes it's called strategic procurement, called many different things. But that's a common role that our students go into right out of college. A lot of them go into some type of production planner role, using the same example of Toyota. Well, how many Camrys of a certain color do we make before we make a different color Camry? Or L8 or whatever company it might be. We have a lot of students that go into some type of logistics oriented role. So there's many different, we have students that some of them go into import-export compliance, which is a specialized area within the logistics pillar. You think about any multinational company, the very essence of being a multinational company is that you're shipping your product, across international borders. There's a tremendous amount of, paperwork and clearance activities, government imposed, just a tremendous amount of paperwork and documentation, especially over the last 20 years. So a lot of our students will go into that specialized area of supply chain.
Yeah, that's so interesting. And just to think of all the diverse options there are, really, I mean, for any area of interest, there is a supply chain job for you in that area.
One of the things that you mentioned earlier, I think needs expanded upon. And so very few students come out of high school saying they want to be a supply chain professional. Most students who come to the business school, they know the typical things. They want to be an accountant. They want to work in marketing. They want to be an HR manager. Uh, so nobody really comes out of high school saying they want to be a supply chain manager. It's not the nature of it. So one of the things that we are trying to do here at EKU, I've been spending time on this just this past summer, is putting together programs where we can introduce the supply chain program to students at earlier points in their college matriculation. So most students, such as yourself, you took that first supply chain class as a junior or senior. Well, at that point, those students obviously are so far along in their program to change programs or to add a second degree program. It's not often practical. So one of the things that we have identified, this is through our advisory council, a good example of how we work with the advisory council, is we're starting to really think deeper about different kinds of programs and initiatives that will allow us to either physically get in front of high school students and FBLA teachers across the state, or first year programs. We have first year programs, here in the School of Business. We have first year programs at EKU in general terms overall. So how can we get in front of those undecided freshmen to introduce them to supply chain early on, as opposed to them hearing about it when they take a course with me or the other professors in their last semester, such as the case with you?
Absolutely. I think that's a great plan. Like I said before, I think so many people have just heard about global supply chain management kind of in name only, but they're not familiar with the field any deeper than that. So I think that's a great plan to kind of familiarize people with that field before they start making a huge decision as far as what they're going to get their education in.
One of the things that I love doing is staying in touch with my students after they graduate. One of the things I always say, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart, once you're my student, and that doesn't mean you're a supply chain major, but once you have been a student in one of my classes, regardless of if it was an elective or a major course or a course in your major, once you're my student, you're always my student. And one of the most interesting things of all is I keep track of where my students are in terms of their career. And we have had almost, this is amazing, we have had almost 200 students that have majored in a different area of business that are now working in a supply chain capacity. So think about that. We've graduated in 6 years now. We graduated over 50 students. We have about 60 students in our program at any point in time. But so many of our students that are majoring in management or marketing or accounting or finance or whatever it might be, they are now working in supply chain roles. There's one particular student who majored in marketing, and he's now working for the largest logistics company in the United States. And it's very interesting what his job is. He interviews students from undergraduate supply chain programs all across the United States as to whether, he thinks that they'll be a good fit for his company. So I think it's of all the different data and analytics and information that I keep on our program, that we would have, nearly 200 students that majored in something other than supply chain that are now putting their business skills to work in a supply chain environment. I think that's awesome.
That is awesome. That absolutely is. I know that our graduates are going on to work for very prestigious companies, and they're having tremendous results in their work there. And so I love the fact that you keep in contact with them. I don't know if there's anything else that you maybe want to speak to as far as what our current, students or graduates are doing in the field, who they're interning for, who they're working for. Where can you find the EKU Global Supply Chain student?
Well, it's interesting. When I first started this program back in 2014, I spent a lot of time, as anyone would have to do, with going out and what I call telling the KU story, right? We have a supply chain program, what makes it unique. One of the interesting things here in our School of Business is we don't have Friday classes. So students, if they take a lot of coursework in their first couple years, that those last 2 years, often our business students get their classes on either a Monday, Wednesday schedule or a Tuesday, Thursday schedule. And of course, we have a lot of night classes here at EKU. What that enables then is when students are a second semester junior or a senior, is that often gives 2 to 3 days a week of uninterrupted time to get an internship. And having worked 22 plus years in industry, I can tell you it's very inconvenient. It's not that valuable, honestly, when you have an intern and he or she is constantly coming and going back and forth to campus. But at EKU, the way the program is designed, and those students, again, take a lot of courses early on in their college process. Typically, that last year or last year and a half, take courses 2 days a week, again, maybe some night classes. But I tell you, the companies that we work with, Carhartt, Lockheed Martin, Bechtel, it's a list of the biggest companies in America, honestly. They really love the fact that when our interns are on their site, that they're often there for often a full day at a time. And there's not the constant coming and going that often is, not so helpful.
Right. And that's just, that's such strategic thinking on your all's part to kind of equip students during their time as students to go ahead and get those internships and to go ahead and prove themselves. It really just kind of puts them in that pipeline to send them straight to a job right after graduation.
Mm-hmm. One of the things that I did, I guess it was in the start of the second year, is I started putting together 1 or 2 times per semester a supply chain management program update. And that started out with going to maybe 50 senior supply chain leaders across the region. That now goes out to 500 supply chain professionals across our region, so a 10-fold increase. And for example, just last night, a senior HR executive with a company that I had worked with before, she's moved on now to another company, but she reached out to me with her new company. Because of the experience formerly, she is wanting to have one of our supply chain majors intern at her new organization. It really made me proud that, here's a lady that I had worked with in a former capacity. She's now moved on to another company. And because of the experience, the positive experience that she saw previously, she's wanting to have one of our EKU students work for her company now. So it's I often say it's sort of an exponential growth in that, people move from one company to another. We know that, but often, very often actually, when we see that happen, that person is still actively recruiting from EKU.
Mm-hmm. And I know you've been incredibly intentional about creating networking spaces for students, because networking in business is absolutely just essential. So can you maybe speak to more of those networking opportunities you've presented and maybe how those results have turned out? Have these students gotten internships from those networking opportunities? Have they gotten jobs?
Absolutely. I think a wonderful example would be to talk about friends out at Carhartt. So many people know that Carhartt is a 100-plus-year-old company. They're headquartered out of Michigan. Not many people know that their global supply chain headquarters is in our neighboring Estill County, right? So, and furthermore, their senior vice president of supply chain management is an EKU grad. And so I have invited William Hardy to EKU many times. He's on our advisory board, has come and guest lectured in my courses several times, but so have other people in the Carhartt organization. In fact, one of the things I'm really proud of, this was 2019, Carhartt chose to have their annual global supply chain leadership team annual meeting at EKU. And I had, 20 of my top supply chain students. They were all dressed so professionally. I was so proud of them. So they welcomed all of the Carhartt supply chain executives to campus. They did everything from directing parking to directing them to the restrooms and things of that nature. But above and beyond that, Carhartt invited those 20 young supply chain professionals to sit in and join their meetings for the entire day. All right. So that there was something for both sides. Yes, our students were serving, but at the same time, they were getting to hear all of these top supply chain leadership initiatives and programs and so forth. And, Carhartt has been probably the premier company in terms of offering internships to our students. They have hired many of our students. I shared with you earlier, 90% of our interns get full-time job offers. We have multiple students, or former students, or graduates, I should say, that are now working their way up the Carhartt supply chain organization. And I could say the same with for Bechtel, the largest construction company in the world. I could say the same with Lockheed Martin, the largest defense contractor in the world. We have so many alliances now with these outstanding companies. And I always tell the students a few things. I'm like, number one, when you go out on an internship, you're representing not only yourself, you're representing the EKU brand, and even more so, you're representing me. Okay, so our companies, the companies that they work with, we have a level of excellence that we have worked very hard to achieve. And I don't personally secure every internship that our students get, but I would say I help with over 85% of them. Most of the time, it's an employer of some form or fashion, Carhartt or Hitachi or whomever, that they reach out to me and they say, hey, I need a student that has maybe already taken the procurement class or has already taken the logistics class. All right. And then I, through my knowledge of our students and seeing how they perform in the classroom, I'm able to often present 3 students, and I'll tell William Hardy, for example, here are 3 outstanding students for the internship. I think you should interview all 3, and they'll do that, and then they'll pick the one that they think is the best fit.
That's amazing. You're really giving these students just access to these executives that they maybe wouldn't have access to otherwise. So
yeah, I don't think this happens certainly to the degree it happens here at EKU. I don't know any other program, not just supply chain. I don't know any other university that brings more top-level talent than we do in our supply chain program. We started in my third year here, we started a supply chain executive speaker series. Now we're constantly bringing, top supply chain executives to campus, but this is a very high-level event where we invite university administrators, we invite faculty from across campus. We often invite the community, and we'll bring an extremely high-level executive to campus to speak. So, for example, my good friend Tanya Jackson, who is the top supply chain executive, the chief supply chain officer for Lexmark, she was our speaker a few years ago. And one of the interesting things that we've done is we don't just bring that type of person to campus, 5 minutes before the meeting starts, and then he or she speak for an hour, and then we, literally push them off, of campus. That's not the case at all. What we do is we have opportunities for networking, different types of mixers. We often have, some type of luncheon either before or after, where our supply chain students from the freshman level up to the senior level can engage and ask questions to these top executives in a very small, intimate setting. The degree to which we do that at EKU, I'm proud to say, I think is exceptional.
Yeah, I'm sure that's a huge point of pride for you. I know it is for the program, which kind of leads me to my next question. And you might have already answered this, but what are you most proud of in your time creating and leading this program? Is it those networking opportunities? Is it maybe something else?
Well, on a personal note, I think I've worked now almost 30 years between my corporate roles and my time here in education. And, I can think back, there's really been only 2 instances where I, was tasked with starting something completely new. So I launched Corning's newest international office in Singapore in 2012 and 2013. But, and then I came to EKU to launch our supply chain program here. So there's not many times in one's professional career where you get to take something from, you get to create something from scratch and sort of nurture it and develop it and mold it into something special. So from a personal perspective, being a 3-time EKU grad, having been born and raised in rural Appalachia and Pike County, to get to come back to EKU now, all those years later, and lead a program of distinction, one of our fastest growing programs on campus, and just the types of jobs that our students are getting. Our average starting salary for our supply chain grads is roughly $45,000 to $55,000, and we have regularly students that start out. This is with a 4-year degree in the mid-60s to low 70s. So you can compare that to any type of data that you want, particularly for the state of Kentucky. And even within EKU and peer institutions. That's amazing. Those salaries are higher right out of college than most people will make in their entire lives. And I love that, I'm able to continue those relationships with students. Many students, they'll be in a role for 2 or 3 years, and as is the case, they'll be presented with some type of opportunity to maybe move up in the company, but to go to another location, or another opportunity will arise at another company, or they sometimes elect to go back to school to get a master's degree or whatever it might be. They actively as much as I actively seek out that kind of relationship, they reciprocate. And I tell you, I have so many of my former students that will come by my home and visit. And anytime they're in the Richmond community, they want to come by and see me, and that means a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. That's definitely something to be proud of. I mean, relationships with students it's what it's all about, is helping these students kind of, go out into the world and succeed, and especially in such a high demand field. I mean, this program really is changing students' lives.
Well, I had a tremendous professor at EKU back in the day, Dr. Bertie Adkins. He just recently passed away. He was a mentor to me while I was a student here at EKU. But more than that, he was a mentor to me throughout my entire corporate career. I remember when Corning asked me to relocate to Japan. Dr. Bertie Adkins was the first person that I approached because I valued his sage advice. And so, I hope to some degree that I'm that kind of person. I'll tell you, of all the things I'm surprised about, I really thought I would be at EKU for 2 years and then go back to industry. And again, now this is year 7. I never expected to have such wonderful students that I would develop these relationships with. And then, and 3 and 4 and 5 years later, after they graduate, I probably get more invitations to weddings, maybe any professor at EKU, I don't know. But I just love my students. We have something special here in our supply chain program. I've always been of the mindset, people really know, when you're sincere and genuine and care about them, right? You can say those things all you want, right? But it's something different when students know that's true. And, already this morning I have made 2 phone calls for students to help them get some internships lined up for summer 21. I've already edited a student's resume this morning. So I just, I write a lot of letters of recommendation. And it's just an honor. It's a privilege. Students always will start out with, I hate to ask. And I'm like, don't hate to ask. Those kinds of things that I really enjoy doing. Helping someone start their career on a positive foot, right? I don't know if there's anything we can do as professors more valuable than that. So.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And this next question, I always like to ask to people that I consider to be thought leaders or kind of industry drivers in their field, which you absolutely are. What excites you about the future of global supply chain, and what excites you about the future of our program at EKU?
Several things excite me. One of the things outside of EKU that I do is I'm on the board of directors for the Richmond Industrial Development Corporation, RIDC. And that organization is tasked with recruiting companies to come to Madison County. So a very important thing. And so the role that I play at KU in leading our supply chain program, and at the same time being the, one of the faces, right, of our city government that assist putting together, recruiting and targeted advertisement to get prestigious employers to come here. That's just a wonderful mix. So that excites me. It excites me that our program continues to grow in terms of the number of alliances with these phenomenal companies. I mentioned a lady just recently or earlier that had moved from one company to another company. This new company that she's working with is a large pharmaceutical company in our region, and we've never had anyone either intern or work for the pharmaceutical company. There is a young lady, her name is Kayla Hillard. And Kayla Hillard graduated about a year ago, and she was our first student to ever get an internship and start working in the bourbon industry. So she now works for Heaven Hill Distilleries out in Bardstown, another company that we're now actively working with to grow our relationship. So what excites me is seeing these students. Kayla, for example, now after a year on the job, she's now one of the leaders of a large supply chain software implementation project, multi-million-dollar project that Heaven Hill is implementing right now, and Kayla is one of the leaders of that initiative. So seeing our students transition from being very successful in the classroom to being very successful in the corporate world, that's very exciting for me. I think I take as much pride and happiness and joy from seeing our students get the great jobs than perhaps almost that they do themselves. I feel sort of like their father in some ways.
Mm-hmm. And we are EKU Online, so I'd be remiss if I did not ask, how do you see online offerings changing the future of the program?
Well, I'm very excited to share that we just this semester launched our supply chain certificate program through the eCampus program. I very much enjoy working with the eCampus team, great group of people. And, we have to realize that, for a lot of different reasons, not everyone can come to to physical college campus. But we also agree that nearly everyone needs some type of training to distinguish themselves in this very competitive workforce. So just this semester, we launched our supply chain certificate program about 4.5 or 5 years ago. Again, it's the 4 foundational courses. So we're now offering those through eCampus. We have a lot of students in those programs. And we have outstanding faculty that teach those courses. I'll tell you that the people that are teaching our eCampus courses are every bit as qualified and talented as those of us that are teaching, in the traditional capacity.
I know you can't be thinking about supply chain management all the time. So what do you do for fun? What do you do to relax?
Well, so as you mentioned, I'm a 3-time EKU alum. My wife is as well. My oldest daughter and her husband are both EKU grads, and my 2 youngest daughters are EKU students right now. So most of my life, it seems, most of my time is related to EKU in some form or fashion, either teaching my courses, going out to what I call site visits with the companies, to going to EKU events. We love supporting, for example, the basketball team and the football team, softball team, and so forth. But I have 3 granddaughters now under age 6, and I enjoy spending time with them. And I love being outside and just contributing to our community. So one of the things we've done over the last academic year is my supply chain program. We have launched a program with the Salvation Army, and in the last 2 semesters, we've collected over 2,500 cans of food for those in need throughout our community. So I stay busy, it seems, with all things related to EKU.
Yeah, it sounds like it. So I know we've covered quite a bit of information today. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with our listening audience that maybe we haven't covered?
Well, I just think it's a great time to study at EKU right now. We have a lot of new programs throughout our entire university, but we have a number of new programs in our School of Business. And even with our supply chain program, as I mentioned, we're now finding ways to provide opportunities for different segments of students, whether those students are working full time and want to take some of our courses through the Workforce Education Department, or whether students want to take our online classes through campus, or the courses that we're now offering via our night class program. So it's just a wonderful time to be at EKU. I'm very proud to be an EKU alum. I'm very proud to teach at EKU. And I just invite, anybody that wants to know more about our supply chain program, you can Google me on the EKU website. You'll find all of my contact information. And I, as always, throughout my career, I take great pride in when someone reaches out. I definitely will get back in touch with you. So with that, I'll just go Colonels.
Absolutely. Those are some great final words. Well, again, thank you so much, Dr. Easterling, for sharing your time and your expertise with us today. And thank you for everything you're doing at EKU with the Global Supply Chain Program. I'm excited to see where things go from here, and I'm excited for the future of the program.
Me too. Thanks for your time, and good seeing you again, and all the best.